right. It is April 7th, 2025. It is 10:37 a.m. We're doing a bit of a breaking news open house to talk about the tariffs, the announcements. If you're new to Open Haus, I'm Olivia Kory. I head up strategy here at House. We're a marketing incrementality platform. I am joined today by Michael Wieder, co-founder and president of Lalo, to talk about the tariffs, how brands are navigating the moment. Michael, you've been on the front lines of this. You were recently in Asia. You were on CNBC on Friday. And Lalo, of course, is one of my favorite baby brands. We are a Lalo family over here. We have high chairs, play kits. All of my friends love it as well. So you've been really, I think, a leader in the space in terms of education and guidance. So thank you for being here. You all have been a customer of House since 2024 as well. Again, thank you for joining. I would love to just hear a little bit from you in terms of perspective on like how we got here, to kind of contextualize the moment. Give us a little bit of background on what's been happening in your world over the past month, even longer. Yeah, bring us up to speed on what has led to this moment, and then we'll talk about the current news.
Yeah, I'm laughing because like even the term here is like a moving target. We're constantly at a different place. And I have, excuse me if I seem distracted, I have CNBC on over my screen just in case something breaks. But so let's go back to first Trump administration. And so during that administration, tariffs were a thing also. And so during that administration, there was something called the Section 301 tariffs, which impacted a lot of products, a lot of different industries. And those industries had different lists, right? So based on your different lists, it went into a different tier of tariff or went into effect in a different time. And for us, a lot of our products landed on what was it, the list 4B. List 4B was excluded, and that was a lot of baby toys and baby products and stuff like that. And for good reason, right? You want to protect American families. You don't want to raise costs for parents. Makes a ton of sense. So we've been able to avoid those tariffs for a long time. Other industries have not, apparel, but some of our products absolutely fall on that list. And so, those were 25%. Now you fast forward to the campaign this past year, and it was front and center. Like, I remember talking to the Wall Street Journal and other outlets about what do you think and who pays, and like a lot of the focus was on who pays. And if you remember the rhetoric from the campaign, China pays, China pays, China pays, China pays. Like that was like the unrelenting comment about who pays for tariffs was the country pays. And, obviously anybody that's ever imported anything and anybody that has taken macroeconomics 101 knows that that's not true. And so, the burden obviously falls on the importer. And many times that, does get passed on to the consumer in price increases, depending on what the brands themselves, the importers, decide to do. So now Trump gets into office. Everybody's obviously curious about what he's going to do. He's had a lot of campaign promises. And, if there's one thing that is true from he's done a lot of things that he said he was going to do better or worse, right? And so tariffs now become in play and everybody's waiting for what he's going to do. And so the first move was these IEEPA tariffs that he said were 10%. And it was all about fentanyl, stopping the flow of fentanyl in this country. And it was focused on Mexico, Canada, and China. There were some, delays on things, holding things, adding another 10%. So now we're at 20% for IEEPA. So if you go back to Section 301, you potentially have 25. You add this 20, now you're at 45. Now, a couple of days ago, he announces the IEEPA reciprocal tariffs. And this is a whole new set of tariffs. And so the thing about this is it doesn't just raise the bar of the tariff rate, it stacks. So we're, what we went from 25 to 20 was 25 to 45. Now the new ones, depending on the country, let's just use China as the example, you could have a 79% tariff rate. And so this also doesn't include anything that's a duty. So if you have duties, that also is on top. And this is all my understanding. Like, I'm just a guy operating a business, I could be proven wrong, but we've done a lot to educate ourselves. We've retained import attorneys to really educate ourselves. And that's been the real goal of the last few weeks, has purely been and really more than the past few weeks, been the past few months, like ever since the campaign, to really learn and understand what could be the impact. Um, but yeah, you're talking about in China, just on a tariff basis, you're at 79%. If you're in Vietnam making stuff 46%, but you could have a duty on top of that, right? So, we have some products where it's 80% more to import something now. That's a really tough pill to swallow, obviously, as a business. And we're not alone in that. So that's kind of how we got to this present day of where we are, and we'll see what even the next hour, the next day holds of where that present day kind of bar is. But that's our expectation of where it will be right now.
Yep. Yep. And I know you mentioned, they've announced a few rounds of these. The first one, you got kind of just take the hit in terms of margin. The next one, you go to China, you negotiate with the manufacturer. This one, like, how do you even begin to approach it in terms of response?
Yeah. There are tariff mitigation strategies that we've learned from our lawyers of like ways that you can lower your tariff burden. Legal ways to do that. There are a lot of gray area tactics and not legal ways to do it too. And I would encourage every operator to resist any temptation towards that. I think one thing that we've been talking to our lawyers about is like, not only are they raising tariffs, they're likely increasing enforcement around tariffs as well. Because if the goal is to bring in more income, not only do you need to charge more, you need to make sure that people are paying the right amount as well. And so, um, and they're looking, according to more expert than me, is they're looking at criminal penalties too, not just monetary penalties. So if you are skirting tariffs, you are breaking the law, and they would look at that as a felony. So I would be looking at everything you can do to mitigate from a legal basis. And there's some interesting stuff. I encourage everybody to look up what first sale is. A lot of us are able to take care of it, but then you have to do an ROI analysis on the cost of setting it up versus the tariff savings, and make sure that it's worth your time and money to go set it up, because it's not free of cost to go set it up. So there are things to do, but first, the most important thing is that everybody get educated, and not, at the deepest level of what the tariff impact is, how you could possibly mitigate it, and take every measure to learn first before taking any action.
Yep. Yep. I know that over the past few weeks, folks have been kind of like urgently trying to rebuild supply chains. And that ended up, as the news came out late last week, that is, obviously extends beyond just China. That felt like, probably um, uh, a knee-jerk reaction, I would say. So, like, are you considering moving manufacturing right now, and rebuilding supply chain, and how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so we launched our business in 2019. So like the idea of diversifying your supply chain outside of China was like, since I was learning about supply chain and manufacturing for the first time, that was always in the back of my head. So we have manufacturing in Thailand and Vietnam, in Taiwan, in Turkey, in India. Um, but we also want to go to the best place to make things. And so you can't not everybody can just spin up new supply chain left and right. I think given how fast this administration has moved in, forward directions, backward directions on their announcement, like announcing something, pulling it back, and then announcing it, changing it, moving too fast into anything, depending on how big your business is. But let's say you're in kind of a range of small and medium-sized businesses, you don't have infinite cash and just like tons of cash flow able to just pour into frivolous exercises. I would resist jumping into any decision too quickly,
Yep.
right now. And this is from like, I'm always a proponent of speed, right? Speed in operating is great, except for right now. Like, this is the one moment I think where I've had to resist and really ground myself in making right decisions, not fast decisions, because it's very hard to reverse these decisions.
Yep.
And I've personally, when I was in Asia, there were other brands that work at the same factories, like trying to figure out how to move the products that they're making in this Chinese factory to a Vietnamese factory. And 2 days later, this announcement came out. So it's like, you can spend a lot of time and money and energy, and then it can completely be useless. So I think, I would be, if you're thinking about moving supply chain, it should be because it's the right long-term decision, not the right short-term decision.
Yep. Yep. That makes sense. How about price increases? Like, does that thinking of no, no quick kind of rash decisions right now, does that apply to how you're thinking about pricing?
It does. I think right now where I'm at in my head in my work is I'm trying to predict the difference that we might have to go down based on potential decisions that could come. They could pause all the tariffs. They can hold the universal tariff. They can pause all except China. They could lower rates, increase rates. Like anything can happen, and so kind of have to be prepared right now for every possible swim lane because the way that these announcements are happening. And so if you plan for the worst possible swim lane, you're super well protected in the best case scenario. Um, but you just really, it's all about doing your homework and understanding. And as far as price changes go, I think that price changes in a lot of cases are inevitable for businesses, but it's the easy way out.
Yep.
There are a lot of other parts of your marketing and sales strategy that could be toyed with, whether that's your promotion strategy, your loyalty, your returns, your shipping policy, any other, just like any other cost center or revenue driving part of your P&L can be examined as much as your prices. And so it depends what industry, where you are, your tariff rates, and who your consumer is. In our case, we're doing everything we can to hold our prices as long as we can, because we don't want to impact. Like very true to our brand is protecting parents, and we even dropped prices in January, knowing tariffs were coming. We didn't expect what happened last week. But we knew that we were exempt from 301. So we had that benefit on the majority of our products already. And that was already priced in because they were announced well before we had those products. So we knew that. The other piece was on those first 10 we fully absorbed. On the other 10 we've had really strong negotiations with our suppliers our Chinese suppliers at least to help support that. And then when it goes beyond that, it's just it's a how is this going to get done? And that's where you have to kind of dig through and consider everything.
Yep. On that note, you guys just recently launched in Target. The displays look amazing. How so? Like, how are you working with the retailers through this? And to the point about pricing, are they going to take a margin hit? Like, educate me a little bit on how this works with your retail and wholesale partners.
So most the big retailers have a 90-day window. Like they're not going to pay more for goods, in that window of time. And I think rightfully so. I think that's a reasonable standard for the most part, because you probably have that inventory here, right? And so it probably hasn't been hit with tariffs. Now, these going into effect so fast, to be honest, the thing that I'm worried about right now is most brands are bringing in their inventory for Prime Day right now. Like their orders are in production. They're going to land with these tariffs probably on them. I'm curious about what's going to happen to Prime Day promotions, Circle Week promotions in July, because to stomach a 20% minimum discount and getting a Prime badge for Prime Day when you have 80% more cost is very, very tricky. And so, those conversations with the retailers are certainly fluid, how it's going to be dealt with. I think that the retailers have an interesting position that they sit in, and they could choose to protect the consumer. They could choose to more lean towards, their margin and their, maintain and take a hard line, which business is business. They can do whatever they want. But I think it really comes down in all these cases, whether it's conversations with your manufacturer or the retailers or internally about prices, about open dialogue. Like there are no secrets right now. Like this is, for all intents and purposes, a crisis. It's a war. And so like we all should be just like putting it all out on the table as much as we can and feel comfortable doing to hopefully create the best outcomes for the consumer. Right. I'm a
Yep.
big believer, and I may be in the minority, that if we think about the consumer first and lean towards doing the right thing, it should come back on the P&L.
Yep.
That's always to a degree, right? There's some limits. Like there are some products right now, straight up, we will lose money on. We
Yep.
will lose money on because we're paying 80% more on the cost of those goods. So, we have to look at everything and kind of comb through our entire P&L and make it work.
Yep. I even heard about like, talk to your manufacturers, talk to your retail partners. I've even heard of like competitors in the same category having
Hmm.
meetings. Just like they're all impacted in the same way. So now there are even these war rooms with, folks who are traditionally competing with one another to get through this. So I agree with you in
Yeah.
terms of crisis. So we should, if based on precedent, we shouldn't expect prices to change inside of Targets in the next week or two. But I think what I'm understanding is like, hey, like everything's in play right now. While we shouldn't expect that because you have the inventory already. Like, they might make a
I
decision
think,
to
yeah.
respond.
I would say any price increases you see coming online sooner than later will probably be because of the IEEPA tariffs, the IEEPA tariffs on the fentanyl
Ah,
that were it's on 20%. So not every brand was like, I'm going to stomach that. Some were like, I'm going to raise prices. And so there were definitely brands that were working through price increases on that initial announcement. And those are probably going to start being seen on the shelves soon. These tariff impacts you'll probably start to see right around Prime Day.
yeah, that is
And that's
brutal.
but you can't just raise your price before, like there's certain manipulation stuff that Amazon has also put in place, like in terms of raising prices and your average on your price. So like I just maybe it'll be right after Prime Day, I don't know, but it every business is different, like when you have your goods, your production schedule, your um and how your business is built. So I think there's not going to be a tried and true or like a set date, and for us, we want to never do it if we ever, do it. So, but we'll wait. We'll wait.
Yep. I'm going to switch gears slightly to kind of like marketing teams. Our customers are primarily heads of marketing, CMOs, who right now are just, I think, rebuilding the model to, to figure out like, where they need to be. Any advice for like the marketing teams inside of these organizations right now on where they can be adding the most value?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking at that P&L and you see COGS is going up, you better expect to bring everything else down, whether that's your budget, your cost structure. So like I think cost caps are going to be big caps are going to be like more prevalent than ever right now, and probably should be, to create a sense of rigor around paid media. Um, I I think there's other tactics too, like things that have been used for conversion, like welcome offers, right? What's going to happen to those? Like you can't just offer 10%, 15%, 20% if you don't have the dollars, like the gross margin dollars to support that. So like to think like marketing teams thinking they're totally absolved of the impact of tariffs is a farce. Like it's just not true. So or it's bad strategy.
Yeah.
Um, but I think every part of the P&L needs to be looked at, if especially if you want price increases to be the last thing you cross off the list.
Yep. I've been pretty vocal around like, the advice from vendors of like, don't cut marketing, I think is self-serving. Like you should probably be cutting right now. But we like what we've been seeing is like kind of like systematic, like, more strategic, like where like spend decrease tests of like drawing kind of that diminishing marginal return curve of like, where should we be pulling from and what should we expect in terms of minimizing, cost to the business. Um, the other area I'm seeing marketing folks really lean in is like just this partnership with finance. Like the most important partnership I think in organizations right now is that between marketing and finance, so that you're
Yeah.
able to speak this language.
Yeah.
Again, the folks right now who are, arguing as like marketing increase as a way to get out of it. To your point, I think is probably just just like that person is probably not close enough to the P&L. And like I got the advice at Netflix, I think very early on, of like everyone in every part of the organization should understand how to read a P&L statement. And I think that's like more important now than ever.
Yeah, I think like if you just pour more, I'm trying to think of like a great analogy for it, but like it's kind of like if you've ever dug a hole at the beach, right? And like you want to get deeper and deeper. That's like you wanting your marketing to perform better and better. But every time the wave comes in, everything rises back up and it like closes your hole. Is like kind of how I'm thinking about it. If you keep digging, keep spending on marketing, you're not going to necessarily get better. You need to move your hole further away from the water, right? Like you need to like protect yourself so that the water doesn't rush in. Um, that's that's how I'm thinking about it. Like do things to predictably protect yourself. Like you can't just like scurry through it and hope you're gonna get deep enough fast enough that it won't impact you. It's like just scoot 5 feet back. Like
Yeah.
yeah, protect yourself, know you're gonna win. That's how I'm trying to operate in this moment. But it's coming fast and furious. Like you just have to be ready for the unexpected.
Awesome. All right. That's a great place to end. Michael, I know you're super busy. I love that, you're doing right by your customers, by families. Thank you for offering your time. Thank you for being out there and helping folks navigate. We appreciate you very much. And any closing thoughts for the folks who are watching?
Uh Take a deep breath, um, buckle up. It's like we're all in this together. You're not alone. Like everybody is dealing with the same thing. And this is unprecedented times, like certainly unprecedented times. So um, feel free to share. Like if you have other tactics, I'd love to hear them too. Like I'm one source with one set of thoughts, but certainly want to collectively see what the whole industry and the whole world of e-com and retail is thinking about this.
Yep. You're the calming presence for me right now. Like, like I'm on Twitter a lot. And so talking to you, I feel smarter, I feel more educated, and I feel a little bit more at ease. So I
Yeah, I
appreciate
mean, most of D2C Twitter, in my opinion, probably has no idea about any of this because like they're waiting for everybody to say something so they can say something intelligent too. But I would stay in the fray of like I'm trying to be with people that are many stages ahead of me in business or real experts, right? Real true experts, whether that's import lawyers, talking to my people, talking to my manufacturers, talking to my retail partners. Like that's where we're going to get the most insight. It's not from a bubble of so-called experts. So
Yep. Yep.
that's where
Amen.
I'm at. Stay off Twitter, except if you're watching this on Twitter.
Yeah, we won't put paid behind it on Twitter.
Yeah,
Michael, thank you. I know you're traveling. Safe travels.
yeah. Thank you.
Talk soon.
All right, bye.